So what I want to do now is generate the order ID. So what does this have to be? Well, it's got to be random and it should be unique, or not should be, it has to be unique to the entire site, right? So no matter what the order number is, we need to make sure that this is a unique order number. And it has to be random, so that means that we want, various characters. That's just something we're adding to it, right? The unique part is a must. Like, you can't have the same order ID over and over. I will say, of course, you could do it that way, but that's going to make it a lot harder for you in managing your e-commerce business, right? So we want to avoid those things. So I'm going to use random and unique, and I'm going to do it in a way that we've already actually seen before, or at least some variants of it we've seen before inside of our products. So in products.utils, we have this unique slug generator as well as our random string generator. We are going to move this utility function to our main configuration folder. So I'm going to go in here and do utils.py and cut out this entire products.utils.py. In fact, delete that entire thing. We are not going to save changes. We're going to say no. And now I've got my utilities method inside of my e-commerce app. So these utilities can be used in all sorts of our apps themselves, let alone in what we're about to do. So I wanted to move it out of there so we're not repeating ourselves. So we're doing something that's better practice. So with this change, I have to make sure that my models don't mess up. So this from .utils should now be from ecommerce.utils, as in where that app is. And then I'll save it. And I probably already have some errors coming on. And there it is right there, right? So in tag models, line 6, I've already done this. I've already imported it from there. So let's just change this from product utils into e-commerce utils and reorder that. And there we go. That actually solves that problem. So I actually moved the utility method over so we can create now our define unique order ID generator. And we could call it something different, but I'm going to leave it as order ID because that's going to be the name of it. And in fact, I'm going to copy pretty much everything else from our slug because they're roughly the same. And the difference here is going to be how it's actually generated. So the unique ID generator is quite literally a random string generator. So we're going to get rid of the slug stuff and we'll just say order ID equals to random string generator. And we'll leave it in just as it is. It has a size of 10, lowercase characters and digits. We could also just do upper, so we can uppercase all of this if needed. I'm going to leave that out. I'll just leave it as is, or I could also just change the pass-through variable for the characters, but I'll leave it like this, order ID. So this is our order ID new. So we'll just say order new ID. So then in our filtering with our class, we'll say order ID equals to this order ID. And if it exists, then we're going to give it a new order ID. Or really just run this same thing all over again. So I'm actually going to get rid of this new slug method. Instead, I'll just get rid of that and just run it again, basically until I get a random string. That's it. So once I get a random string, then I will return that new order ID. So it's a little bit smaller, right? So there's a Django project with an order ID field. It's a little bit smaller than the slug because it doesn't have to generate anything based off of something else. It's just generating some random string, checking to make sure it doesn't already exist, and then bringing that back. So how do we use this? We're going to go ahead and go into our order model and import this in. So from e-commerce, let's stay in order. So from e-commerce.utils, import unique order ID generator. And then we also want to import signals. So from db.models.signals, import our pre-save signal. And we're going to create our pre-save receiver function for the order ID. So we'll say pre-save create order ID. And it's going to take in the sender the instance, and then args and keyword args. And let's go ahead and set this. So of course the instance dot, well, actually we want to make sure that we don't already have an order ID. So we'll say if not instance dot order ID. So the order ID is allowed to be blank, as we see here. Then we're going to go ahead and create it. So we'll say instance order ID equals to unique order ID generator of this same instance. And then we need to wrap this in. We'll do presave.connect, this presave signal, and then the sender equals to the order. Okay, so hopefully a lot of this stuff was reviewed. Not review. This should be review, right? If you wanted to change the order ID every time, literally every time it was saved, you would just do that. That's all you would do. But we don't need to do that. Once it's actually created, we don't need to recreate it over and over again. And again, since it's a pre-save signal, we don't actually have to call instance.save. We don't have to call that. In fact, you must not call that. You shouldn't, because it just doesn't make any sense. Okay, so now that we've got this, let's go ahead and test it out. Of course, I could also calculate things in this pre-save, but let's stick and be consistent with how we calculate things. So let's look at our model for our cart and see how we did it there. This was mini to mini changed. That is actually how our total was created, right? When the mini to mini was created, that's how we actually handled and changed this. So we might have to do something identical to this. So we'll leave that, but we will leave this for the next one for now. Like, I'm not going to generate the order total because we want that order to total to change if the cart model changes, right? So if the cart mini to mini field change or any of those sort of things change, we want to make sure that we have our signal set up in here to also handle that change if it's needed to happen, for many, many reasons, which we'll find out. Okay, so we've done a lot. Let's go ahead and save it and test it out. I'm in the admin again. I need to assign an actual cart here. Of course, I'm going to leave the order ID blank. I'll hit save and continue. And what do you know? It's in there. I delete it again. I hit save and continue. Notice it's actually coming through and actually creating a brand new order each time. So that's pretty cool. It doesn't obviously calculate anything else. So that's something we'll do in the next one. If you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, let's keep going.